Jello again. This is Ben Hitchcock Cross talking to you today with Debbie Keither. We've got some news here. Let's say MPS, that's Milwaukee Public Schools, for those of you who choose not to live in the city of Milwaukee. That is the school system here. As you know, we have accused them of discrimination. Is that fair to say?
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
And at the same time, MPS is always claiming to have a shortage, particularly of talent, of administrators and teachers. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard behind the scenes or elsewhere that we can't remove XYZ bad actor administrator because there's a shortage.
Right.
Right?
Who else would do it?
We'd
Yes.
like to do it, but we can't. And the first thing that you will always hear coming out of my mouth is, maybe if you didn't discriminate against so many people, you might not have that problem. But that hasn't been put into practice so far.
I think we've seen that in a lot of cases, that they being MPS has strategically discriminated to such huge volumes that they literally have gone through a huge employment pool, the local employment pool.
Right.
I mean, you see that in Tate. You have viable people here that can be working right in your own city.
Who are used to being working, right?
Right,
Trained,
and have worked and have families and have grown up here, and they aren't allowed to be employed by the biggest school district in the state because of
the punitive culture. Yeah.
And discriminatory reasons. I mean, that institution has decided you are not anointed to work here, so we're not going to have you. So hence they've now gone out to recruiting from other countries, or they have been recruiting from other countries.
So that I just want to, there's two things there that I want to sort of separate. There's this whole class of sort of civil service employees in the city of Milwaukee who have been pushed out the door since Act 10, but also before that, just for basically not putting up with garbage.
And more than garbage, things that are unlawful, correct.
Yeah, and unlawful and intolerable.
Intolerable,
right?
correct.
So either they have been pushed out in terms of had charges put against them, maligned, all those their life totally upset, or they've chosen to retire. Right, and we know that from MPS for sure, right?
That
and
is
they're saying,
true.
I don't need to put up with this garbage. I'll go get a job. So there's been a huge migration of talent, brain drain. I think that's fair to say.
That is very fair to say. It's a good summary.
And then also there are people who have been discriminated against systematically, and saying, so you don't meet this criteria of whoever's in power, or, the kitchen staff need to be, we don't want, males in the kitchen staff, for example, right? So that, and I don't know why I'm making up imaginary discriminatory. There's so many to choose from.
There are, and a lot of times it's if somebody has made a complaint in the past.
Right,
it's a big indicator.
So
right?
retaliation, right? That's
Yes.
Tate. I'm just trying to clear, Tate would have been, I think she checked all the other boxes, and had she not made a complaint, she would have got that job. That's my reading on that situation.
That's how most external people view that as well.
Okay, but then also, when I'm reading how many people were not hired for this position that they were posted on the news, had 150 vacancies. We needed, bodies to be cooking these meals for these children, and yet there's these people who aren't being hired there. So and if that's not discrimination or poor management or something, I don't know what that is.
That I would have to agree, because we've seen right down the line, they don't have a shortage of applicants, and they don't have a shortage of qualified applicants, but they don't hire those individuals for reasons that are not logical.
Well, so there is a shortage of competent management, right? There's a shortage of people who are willing. I mean, because part of, I would say, the problem is that the upper management insist on being treated as if they're a different type of human being.
They do. There's a very hierarchical culture in Milwaukee Public Schools.
And so I think that when we're saying that people aren't towing the line, I mean, it's not just enough to toe the line in terms of doing your 8 hours, getting your job done, sort of not stirring any waves. You kind of have to like go along, drink the Kool-Aid, and like hold extreme positions. You have to say things are 2 + 2 = 5, that white is black. You have to like go along with things that are untrue, illegal, unlawful, just to get by.
You must adopt those behaviors. If you do not, and you display any kind of questioning, even just basic questioning, you will be ousted.
And we're basing this off of firsthand information that I think we've gotten, but
Absolutely.
also sources that are freely available on our channel and elsewhere, right?
That's true. Yes.
Okay, and I think you could hold all those positions just based on watching the Chasen depositions, for example, and the Tate case.
I can, and although I have not been physically in the work environment at Milwaukee Public Schools for a number of years, I am privy to a lot of information from people that are still actively there.
Okay. So now we're going to, I guess, go ahead and break this story here, which is MPS is hiring teachers from outside of the United States and has brought them here to teach, okay? And so first of all, we're going to get into issues, I think, of how do these people get qualified to teach in Wisconsin? Because I know when my wife got her Wisconsin teacher's certification, it was not easy.
No, it's not easy. As a matter of fact, we have new stringent rules and so forth. Yeah, with the passing of the Fort test and so forth, which is the Foundations of Reading test. So it's not easy.
And do we think that these, let's say, foreign teachers are, there probably is a better word for it than that, but
they call them international educators.
International educators.
Yes.
Thank you, MPS. I'm going to call that glazed carrot medallions.
Yes.
But that's the inside joke for that. If you're not from Milwaukee, is that the school lunches, even since when I was a kid and attending Milwaukee Public Schools, always had the most magnificent descriptions of what they were serving you. And then you'd read the description and they would say like carrot medallions, and then you'd look and they would be like pretty much frozen hunks of carrot.
That were all dried out,
Yeah.
yes. That's a good description of how they present things.
So that's my like Potemkin Village, that's the gloss, that's the way that I use MPS speak for glazed carrot medallions means I think that the reality is not going to hold up to that.
Yes, and so what MPS did for this year is they went to Nigeria and Colombia, and they wound up bringing between 150 to 200 international educators to Milwaukee, and in some cases they also brought their families.
Okay.
So there are families of 4 to 6 with each international educator that has come to Milwaukee Public Schools to teach.
Now, do you think the city has paid for the travel arrangements for them to come?
They did, yes.
Okay.
So they paid, for the international educators, they paid 21 days for them to be in a hotel
Okay.
upon their arrival.
That's what, 3 weeks?
It's 3 weeks.
Okay.
And that's where the rub is coming in for, the educators themselves, their families, and for the employees who have now been charged with homing the educators and their families, as well as providing all their basic necessities so that these individuals can make it in the positions they've been hired to be in.
Okay, and I do want to hold you right there because part of the issue I think that we want to raise first is how did we get to be in this position, okay? So we've talked about the discrimination, we've talked about the issues of why there's a brain drain at MPS, why this situation is happening, okay?
Yes.
But so then are these because I know, from example, in Nigeria, I believe English is one of the languages that you can grow up learning,
You
right?
can, yeah.
But I wouldn't think that would be the case in Colombia, right? That English would be a second language
True.
to learn.
In most generalities, yes,
right.
that's true.
Thank you for that clarification, right? So, but even still, I'm assuming that they're not learning Fort or other Wisconsin-specific curriculum and are required to certify Wisconsin teachers, right?
They are not. And in a classic MPS style, and also any institution that does not think through project management effectively, all they did was figure out how do we get them here. They didn't think beyond that part.
Okay.
So,
Well, does DPI license? I mean, do they have licenses?
I believe they have emergency licenses.
Okay, and then when that would have had to have been granted by DPI in some.
It would have to be, yes. And many of them are being enrolled in the MPS University.
Okay, which
So-
we know. Let's say that there are a lot. It's fair to say that there are many accusations about MPS University being a, let's say, certification mill, like a diploma mill.
Yes.
And that meaning the whatever qualifications or certifications that it's giving out aren't actually reflected in what's being taught, and that there's also other accusations about the charges for that they're charging basically teachers and other educators for services, and then when they're supposed to get a license or some kind of certification at the end of that, and it turns out that the services aren't worth anything.
Well, and I'm going to quote this right from Baker Tilly. So
Okay.
Baker Tilly is an audit service that Milwaukee Public Schools has their yearly audit for. And this is right in the last 2 years' documentation. It is noted that MPS did not have the proper what do you call it when you take it garnishment. Like they have not set that up appropriately. They don't know who's enrolled. This is quote right from there. They do not know who's enrolled. They don't know how they calculate what is garnished from their wages. They don't know who has gotten scholarships and who hasn't, because MPS didn't keep any records.
Mm-hmm.
And
We've heard that story before. Yeah.
You know, when someone was in front of them, they just made a set of decisions for that particular moment in time. And so there's great variance across everybody who walks through these programs.
We've seen that with COVID money, for example, everything.
And it's...
Because there's no, what did Calvin Furman say, right? There's no forward thinking, there's no forward planning.
There's none. And
Yeah.
it's just moment by moment, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars invested of taxpayer money being used for this. So now you have these educators here who are in various programs, and this is also of record, but their shells of programming is non-existent. So we're not just talking about, hey, there could be a subjective difference in quality. There is nothing there for these individuals to access. They are signing them up for coursework that is empty, and there's no teacher there.
Okay.
And there's no, so this is where the issue is. So people might say, oh, come on, don't be so hard on people who are coming over here and getting used to the culture. I agree with we need to make concessions around that. However, the concession is not to offer them anything.
Right. Well, and you're not hearing us attack any worker coming from Nigeria.
No.
Right. Well, so there's the big issue I think that we've raised so far is, well, why are Milwaukee educators being asked to compete against educators from Nigeria? I think that's a fair thing, and one of the reasons is because of discrimination and illegal acts and just incompetence and Posleyism, right?
Yes.
Violence in defense of ignorance.
Yes.
And so I think that all is one factor. Now then we look at the impacts on the pupils, because these educators, these international educators, they're working with pupils on day one, right?
They are. And that's what we have seen from administrators and teachers in Milwaukee Public Schools who have reached out to me and have said, this is the difference between a system issue and people trying to resolve things. And that is, again, we're not blaming the teachers that are trying to help the international educators or the international educators themselves. This could have been addressed in the setup and the execution of this. So it should not be reliant. You have somebody coming in who's trying to bring their family over. They have no place to live. Okay? That is somebody who has no place to live, and they're expected to report to work in a high stress situation and function without thinking about the homelessness of themselves and their family. Each day is
and also
challenging.
Let's just think about, because I've gone back and forth between Denmark and the United States with every possible support imaginable. Still, where it's so stressful. It just is unbelievably stressed. What do I leave behind? What do I bring? Just that. Then there's the acclimation of everything is the manners, the customs, the everything. It takes a lot of work to translate all of that. But then you're not just being asked to work in some sort of, to drive a bus or to work in a supervised environment. This is the quintessential unsupervised environment where you have to give something of yourself to each and every child that's in that room.
Yes.
And in order to do that successfully, first of all, you have to have support from the larger institution itself. You've got to have support from the parents, which I don't see how any of those two things are possible. But then you also have to be in a place where you can give something of yourself.
That's huge.
And I think that's impossible there.
And we know from the exodus of teachers, even teachers that are in this country, that are saying the job has become, I don't have enough to give to do this job successfully. And these are individuals who don't have issues of homelessness or what are they going to eat? I mean, the school district will feed them while they're there, but when they leave, where are their meals coming from? And where are their meals coming from their family? They don't have beds to sleep in.
So after 21 days, they're on their own.
They're on their own. They have no credit score. They have no place to live.
They don't have a social.
They don't have any. They don't. No, they
Do
don't.
They have green cards?
That I don't know.
I can't imagine how they could. I mean, we don't know, but
that's what the problem solving of a lot of these educators behind the scenes are trying to do this.
If you don't have a social if you don't have a social, good luck trying to get an apartment.
Yeah. That's what they said the biggest thing was. These individuals don't have the proper paperwork to go and even rent a place because they don't have the documents.
And the only person, or I should say entity, who has the ability to vouch for these people, because it's what their only credit worthiness happens to be on their MPS employment, is the very person or entity that's putting them in this position in the first place.
That's true.
Right? Because MPS could at least, I don't know that it solved the problem, but who else but MPS can give them a credit reference? Who else but MPS can give them a good something that a landlord would accept and say, hey, I guess I should be willing to apply from you. You didn't just drop off the face from the moon.
And just imagine in an already stressful, highly stressful environment like that, where kids are involved. I mean, this is the health of children we're talking about here. That you are putting all that extra strain on the adults that are trying to educate children. And it's unnecessary. These things could have been thought through and solved prior to bringing people over. But they're so desperate for bodies in classrooms that they have made this the system.
Because
this
of their own actions.
Created.
Right. And I just want to, because when I heard all that, I'm thinking of sitting in those board meetings and seeing like certain board members like Jilly,
Gokul Gandhi.
Gokul Gandhi, that's what, and Seamson, just saying what a fantastic idea, and thank you so much to the administration for this wonderful idea of bringing in international educators.
And they have not absorbed what the reality of that looks like.
And they didn't at that time. I don't think they have even started to grasp it now. And I don't think they, just looking at through the analysis that we went through, I think you and I sitting there, we're going through that analysis. Well, what are they going to, again, the comparison between is this fair to Milwaukee workers? Is this fair to Milwaukee students? Is this fair to Milwaukee taxpayers? Is this fair to, the greater good of educating these pupils?
And those are great questions, because at what price are they putting these things in place?
Because usually these Band-Aids are more expensive than just doing it right in the first
oh,
place.
the cost, I can't imagine. And they have traveled to these other crews of people have traveled to these other countries. The cost to bring everybody over, and then to not have them in a healthy implementation is disgusting, because imagine having a teacher who's worrying about their family and themselves, trying to then deal with students who have a lot of that need your full attention and need your full wellness to be in front of them.
Right. I mean, right. In fully supported classrooms, they still need teachers who are fully present.
And they need teachers who have pots and pans to cook their own food when they go home at night. They need teachers who have a bed that has sheets on it, or just a mattress to lay upon at night. These are the kinds of things that groups of teachers are going out and finding. And guess what? They don't find them on day one. So you are reporting to work for many, many days with no clothing, no soap, no shampoo, and unless somebody's given it to you. You have no bed to lay on. You are existing on the charity of your coworkers.
And that's just one of those things of when we have shifted the cost of supplies onto teachers has just driven me crazy for 20 years. Okay,
Yes.
And this is just another
one,
right? Because who is rallying? You don't see Catrice Cotton. Having anybody at her house.
Right.
You don't see Posley, the
or
superintendent.
letting them drive one of her Mercedes, yeah.
Right, that would be, or Pots and Pan Drive. You don't see Posley out there banging his drum for Pots and Pans, or having a Nigerian family in his West Wing.
No, but you do see him displaying his tennis shoe collection. Maybe he could give some of his tennis shoe collection to some of these people that have come over here and need clothing.
Right. So, and
he's got a nice tennis shoe collection. He's talked about it many times.
Because I'm going to do a joke here, but it's a compare and compare, or as we used to say, a compare and contrast to the attitude of the so-called educator management. Right? Because they don't really believe in education, but they do believe in their tennis shoe collection.
They do. And they also, along that same line, this is the whole removal and the out of touchness of that layer of they know the teachers, because the teachers see it, and their hands are in it every single day, and their hearts are in it every single day. So they are not going to allow their fellow colleague, no matter where that colleague comes from, to suffer in this way.
Because they're human beings. And
they're human beings.
Yeah.
And they Posley knows, the others will do it for them.
Because that's exactly to my point.
They'll do it.
It's because that's the attitude of these so-called educator managers forever, which is we're just going to, and that's the only people who are left are those who are willing to be exploited. And
that is the key.
Right, because and what my heart breaks for them is because so many of them need and want to be with these kiddos, because the kiddos need and want them to be there, because society needs and wants them to be there, and that's the real parasite and the real problem here is we used to joke about too many swimming pools or whatever, but when one group of people is having conspicuous consumption, meaning showing off their tennis shoe collection, and the other group is giving away what shoes they have to their coworkers, I think that's MPS.
It's a huge disconnect, but unfortunately it has been the culture for many, many years under Posley. And that is what has been cultivated there. Let's celebrate our handbags. Let's celebrate our shoe collection.
Our Mercedes. How many Mercedes do you see in that a parking lot when you
Well,
go in
it's
there?
funny you ask that because when I worked there, I did do data collection on that with video evidence too. And what you'll see any given day that you go there is that almost every single parking space is a reserved parking spot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look, these are all your senior level staff, and there's hundreds of them. And you will see Mercedes, BMW, Mercedes, and they all have personalized plates, so you know exactly who they are.
Right.
And then you see in the way back, we called that the satellite parking lot because it's actually by satellites too.
Right. Where they get
Are
the cancer.
The crap cars, you know, and that's
the
like
Tercels and the Corollas.
yes,
yeah.
and that's where the rest of us were parking and working. So it's just, if it wasn't so pathetically abusive to what we stand for in public education, it would be funny. And it is kind of funny because it's so outrageous.
So, welcome to the International Educators. We're ashamed that Milwaukee has given you such a welcome. We appreciate everything that you do. We appreciate everything that the teachers of MPS are doing for you and for the pupils out there. And but once again, let's say Posleyism has just put another obstacle in front of the teachers, robbed another textbook out of the mouth of the kids here.
That's right. And there, one last comment on this because it just stuck out to me. Again, I get hundreds of things, so I have a lot of detail, but I think Milwaukee Public Schools administration was celebrating the fact that the international teachers they brought over this year did not have to sleep multiple nights in the airport. And so this is better than that. That's the award they give themselves, right?
Right. When
Nobody slept in the airport this time. They didn't have to live in the airport this time. So congratulations for that improvement. We look forward to continuing to welcome international educators with open arms, and we hope that we can continue to treat these individuals with the respect and human dignity that they deserve when they're especially when they're working with Milwaukee's children.
And that we claim to. We claim to do, right?
Yeah. That's what we want.
All right, well, stick with us. We'll keep you informed.